Good afternoon and evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight on the Clinical Pearls from a Visionary Pharmacist on Sleep with Harlan Lahti, Pharmacist. I'm really excited that we have Harlan talking about sleep tonight. He's got a huge amount of experience and is able to understand sleep from many different aspects, including ones that are maybe not so well known, which he'll share with us tonight. So I'm going to pass the floor now over to Harlan.
Hey, thanks, Heather, for the opportunity here to talk about my favorite subject. So I'm going to start this with, everybody has an agenda, so I'm going to tell you what my agenda is. As a pharmacist, I've been licensed for over 50 years, and so I've seen a lot of benefits and a lot of things with prescription drugs. So personally, I don't do a lot of prescription drug dispensing these days. My focus is on health. And so my agenda here, after spending 15 years in geriatric medicine, which is an area that people just take too many drugs. And so seeing what happens to these patients when you take them off the drugs was extremely illuminating. So somebody comes to me and I say, are you in good health? And everybody's going to say, yes, I'm in good health. My first question is, are you taking any drugs? There's often a pause, and then say, oh yeah, I'm on this and this and this and this and this. This is pretty commonplace. Well, my definition of good health is being drug prescription free. So if you're having to depend on prescription drugs, well, it's okay. They're like a crutch. If you break your leg, you need a crutch, but you only need a crutch for a few months. And then you need to get off of your crutches. So this is my approach to prescription drugs, is they are useful. They are necessary for short periods of time, but the abuse of prescription drugs, of course, is the doctors put people on them and they forget them. So the original problem is not dealt with after the 3-month period of continuing to be on prescription drugs. So how did I get into this sleep business? Well, our pharmacy, we have over 200 people a day coming into our store looking for something. And 75% of these people have sleep problems. And I was watching them taking a variety of maybe we have 50 different types of sleep products, from herbs to all types of supplementation, and they were coming back frustrated after spending a lot of money still not sleeping. And they were asking me, well, you know, I've been taking this and I've spent all this money and I still... So I started digging into the sleep problem myself. You know, what constitutes a good night's sleep, and how can we help these people make the right decisions and spend their money wisely? So we're going to start off with this with some misconceptions and myths about sleep. So number one, snoring. A lot of people snore. Common misconception, it is not harmful. Snoring may be a sign of sleep apnea. Now, if you have a person that has sleep apnea, now I'll define sleep apnea. That means that the person is waking up anywhere as many as 20 times an hour because they can't breathe. So if their little epiglottis drops in their throat, they start suffocating, and then they wake up momentarily and start breathing again. So if your patient has sleep apnea, my suggestion is send them to a sleep apnea specialist, because there are many, many physical causes for sleep apnea that you're not going to be able to help that patient with. But snoring may not be just sleep apnea. It may be a sign of an allergy. So I'm going to tell you a lawyer story here that I started treating this lawyer for severe arthritic pain in a damaged ankle. And I said, well, what's your diet like? I said, is it a common lawyer's diet? You know, lots of rich food, lots of wine, cheese. Yeah, he says, you got it. I says, well, okay. let's make 2 alterations in your diet. Let's stop the red meat and all of the cheese and dairy products. Oh my God, he says, I can't do that. He says, I love my cheese and I love my wine. I said, okay, well, you're not suffering enough. So he called me back in another month and he says, I can't sleep. He says, I'm suffering enough. I'll do what you tell me. So I said, let's go on a dairy product holiday. Cut off the cheese. That's it. Well, 7 days later, his wife called me up and she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. She says, I can now sleep. And I said, what do you mean? You can now sleep. I was treating your husband's ankle. And she says, well, when he went off the cheese and dairy product, he stopped snoring. And before he was snoring so loud that I couldn't sleep. And obviously it was a big problem with the pain in his ankle was causing him to not sleep, and then of course his diet was causing him to snore. So you can see one thing will lead to another. So the snoring is just a symptom. So the next myth here is you can cheat, thrive on less than 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So what do you think about that? The answer is no, you cannot. Below 7 hours of sleep, you're going to create what we call sleep debt, and we will go into that in more detail in a minute. So, second myth, teenagers sleeping in class, it's just a bad habit. Well, teenagers need more sleep than we would imagine, and these days, of course, they're not getting it. So if they're sleeping in class, again, they're in sleep debt. Daytime sleepiness means not enough sleep at night. It can be, okay? But it can also be an allergy. So if a person has, say, an allergy to bread, and he has a cup of coffee and a big gooey muffin at 4 o'clock, if he hasn't been getting enough sleep, he almost falls asleep at work. And in some cases, he almost falls asleep driving home from work. So it can be a mixed bag. So daytime sleepiness means not enough sleep. It may be the allergy. So not for sure. Okay, so sleepiness, when does it occur and why does it not occur? So this is the primary function in trying to deal with a patient that is not sleeping well. So if you don't know the cause of their not sleeping, you cannot treat the patient. So I want to emphasize this. You must drill down far enough so that you know the reason that this patient is not sleeping. We will go through step-by-step aid here in helping you figure out what the problem is with this patient. Now, one of the other common misconceptions is that you have to sleep 8 hours solid in one go. Well, current research and thinking says this is not true. But if you're in an age group where you need 8 hours, you need that 8 hours somewhere in 24 hours. So taking a nap during an afternoon break is not a bad thing. Or if you're only getting 7 hours, you can get 4 hours of pre-sleep and 3 hours of good sleep, and you're good to go. Early in the morning, if you're waking up refreshed, you've probably got in your sleep quotient for the evening. So, in order to understand what's going on with the people, we need to discuss this little gland, the pineal gland. And so we've got a schematic here. When I started looking at this, I didn't realize the pineal gland was tiny. It's about the size of a large grain of rice. But its major function, of course, is the major melatonin production in the body. And so what causes the melatonin production? Well, we're doing everything in today's society to knock the melatonin production down drastically. So when you look at how the physiology of the pineal gland is connected to the light that you get during the day, so if you look at the retina is attached almost nervously directly through the sympathetic nervous system to stimulate the pineal gland. So whether the pineal gland is stimulated or not, it has a relationship with the amount of melatonin that you have in the body. Now the thing that's happening in our lifestyle today that hasn't happened 100 years ago is that we have too much light in our daily diet of going around. We have artificial light everywhere. So, and in many cases, this light is blue light. And even worse these days is LED lights because they're cheaper. The LED lights are strong in the blue section, and there is too much lux. Now, lux is the amount of light that you're getting in a room. Now, the ordinary amount of lux you'd have in an ordinary room is about 380. We won't go into more detail than that, but many of our work areas and even our homes are too bright, and they're too bright late in the evening. So what that's doing is stimulating the pineal gland not to produce melatonin. Too much light, not enough melatonin. So we need to look at the other aspect of what's knocking our melatonin levels down, because this is the key, in my estimation, to getting a good night's sleep. If you get good melatonin production, you're going to get a good night's sleep. So the other thing is electronic smog. Now, whether this comes from your cell phone, it's directly, they've done studies showing that cell phone, to the side of your head, 2 hours a day, which is probably average, or looking at the computer for 2 to 4 averages an hour, the screen light that from most computers is strongly blue light. So you get too much stimulation from blue light, and even you look at your home. Now, is your bathroom, most you watch your bathrooms and you walk in and whoa, they're well lit. You've got a huge mirror there and you've got a lot of blue light in this. So just before you go to bed, you're getting a good dose of blue light. Well, it takes the body half an hour to recover from a blast of blue light, or maybe watching television or looking at your iPad while you're trying to relax and go to sleep. These are all counterproductive. So let's look at, besides just melatonin production, what interferes with a good night's sleep. So we've got the basics. First of all, you have to have a regular sleep schedule. So you can ask the patient, what time do you go to sleep? Is it regular? So on a regular basis, if you're going to bed at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, try to keep this schedule at least 5 out of 7 days a week. So you need a dark, cool bedroom. And when I say dark, I mean black, black, black. No clocks with the flashing little red light that you can wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh, it's 4:30 in the morning. Throw a towel over that one. No night lights. If you've got light coming in your windows, buy blackout curtains or something, because melatonin production is very sensitive to any light in the bedroom, period. So dark, completely. Now, if it's not possible, I would recommend a client wear what we could say a sleep mask, so that you're blocking out the light. Even your eyelids will pick up the smallest amount of light coming from the room. So the other big thing is excess amount of caffeine during the day. Now, that's one thing that will wire about 80% of the people is too many cups of coffee during the day. And alcohol, of course, people think, oh, I need a glass of wine before I go to bed. Well, it'll help you get to sleep, but it'll screw up your sleep pattern. So you'll end up getting to sleep for maybe an hour, and then you'll wake up. And the rest of your night, we've done a lot of research with what alcohol does, and when a person is really not sleeping, it's absolutely essential to get them off of caffeine and alcohol. Number one, caffeine, alcohol, absolute killers for sleep for some people. So the other one is, we mentioned it, avoid electronic use before bed. Now, and this particularly means no electronics in the bedroom, period. So if you're using your laptop a half an hour before you go to bed, take it outside of the bedroom. So there's no cell phones, there's no laptops, and if you've got a TV, heaven forbid, throw a black curtain over it so that it's now the electronics will emit a signal in the middle of the night, whether they're turned off or not. Cell phones still turned off, emit a signal. Computers, the same thing. iPads, get them out of the bedroom, because now the other thing is Wi-Fi. Now Wi-Fi is, your client's living in an apartment. Sometimes there could be as many as 20 different Wi-Fis sandwiched on you, from above, below, 5 on different sides. This is a problem. If you've got a Wi-Fi in your house and there's a sleep problem, I suggest turning it off during the night. You can turn it back on in the morning. So these are all things. Electrosmog is huge, and we'll talk about cell phone towers as well. Sometimes these are something that you can't control, but cell phone towers are a big problem. So stress and anxiety. What is going on in this person's life? If they obviously come in and they're anxious, they can't sit still, you'll be able to pick that up right away. And then the first question is, what's going on in your life? What, is you have marriage problems, you hate your work, stress and anxiety will lead to sleep problems, and sleep problems will lead to more stress and anxiety. So these are some of the basic questions that we need to go for asking the patient. Now, we've got a 19-question page questionnaire that we will send you if you're listening in on this. These are questions that I go through with the patient, and so you can try to isolate the cause of these sleep problems. Now, we also have a 6-page questionnaire that you can give to the client first, and it's more detailed. And you have them fill out this questionnaire, and then you give them 10 minutes, and then give it to you, and then you've got something to do your interview with. It's just a personal preference. So the other thing is, do you have any pain or muscle stiffness or old injuries that might be causing you to wake up in the middle of the night? What position do you sleep on? Back, side, front. These are all relevant. Do you have a partner in bed? Do they keep you awake? What sleep aids have you taken? What sleep aids work? What sleep aids doesn't work? Have you taken melatonin? What's your reaction to it? These are all on the 19 questionnaire that we'll hand out to you. Now, the 4 traits of insomnia. Okay, there's I can't get to sleep, I'm waking early, I'm not getting back to sleep, or I'm waking up tired and unrefreshed. So if a patient gives you any of those 4 symptoms of insomnia, then you have to figure out why. Now difficulty falling asleep. And they say, yeah, well, then the first thing I'd say, all right, is your bedroom black? Were you watching the nighttime news just before you went to bed? There's nothing that's going to keep you awake more than and watching about the horror and the hurricanes in the Caribbean just before you go to bed. So suggest maybe that they curtail watching the evening news or watch it earlier, at least an hour before going to bed. So the traits of your insomnia are going to zero you in on helping find the problem of where the sleep problem is coming from. So now, frequency awakening. So again, I'd look at your environment that the patient is in. And caffeine, of course, you can still go to sleep. Now, I drink a cup of tea before I go to bed. It has caffeine, and I'm fine with it. My wife, she can't have a cup of coffee or caffeine after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it varies with the individual, but frequency awakening, is just a sample of a different problem than the first one. So waking early and not getting back to sleep. Now, a common misconception, again, is that you have to have 8 hours sleep solid in a row. Now, it's certainly possible to get up in the middle of the night after 4 hours and go into a relaxed situation of low light and then go back to bed and get 3 hours good sleep. So some people may need to nap the next day. They'll get 6 or 7 hours, and so this, the misconception about napping is, it's not healthy. What is unhealthy is not getting enough sleep. So not getting enough sleep leads to pretty serious relationships with different disease states, and we'll talk more definite on that. Now, sleepiness, when it does occur, often people go to their doctor, and so 50 to 85% of the people diagnosed with chronic insomnia get some benefit from prescription drugs. So if a person has gone through a stressful emotional situation, such as a breakup of a marriage, a loss of their job, a partner, etc., well, that's fine. That's a situation where they can probably go to their doctor, get a prescription sleep aid for I'd say maximum 3 to 4 months, and then get off of the prescription drug and deal with the problem. So if the drug often will be given for indefinite periods of time, stay on the sleep aid, it's going to help you, but it doesn't. So after 3 months, your situation of your health is going to deteriorate. These people do not get a good, deep sleep. The prescription drugs prevent this. You do not go into REM sleep with most prescription drugs. And in order to get a good night's sleep, you need to go to REM state. And we'll talk briefly about REM state. So some prescription drugs, such as the benzodiazepines, such as Xanax, and Valium, it's been shown that these do not have any benefit for sleep. And they're commonly prescribed. So if a patient says, I'm taking the sleeping pill, well, find out what the sleeping pill is. And if it falls into the category of benzodiazepines, then, so then we have another problem to deal with. How do we get these people off of these drugs? So we have a solution for that, because getting them off of the benzodiazepines is a problem. And the doctors keep them on it because they don't want somebody to go into extreme withdrawal that is causing by taking them off of. So the answer to this is melatonin. The melatonin is one of these ingredients that's natural. It's found occurring in the body, and you can give it and solve most sleep problems. And I say most sleep problems. I have over 500 to 1,000 people taking melatonin, and they started in many of them for sleep problems. 95% of the cases that melatonin has solved the problem. But melatonin is a tricky situation. You need to individualize the dose for each and every patient. So let's say a person comes in and say, oh, I've started melatonin and I'm taking 3 milligrams and it does no good. Or I've started melatonin and I'm taking 0.5 milligrams and it keeps me awake. It's like I've had 5 cups of coffee. So we can figure out what is happening with melatonin. Now, the melatonin production is mainly in the pineal gland, but the gut, the bowel, is also a major producer of melatonin. So if somebody is taking melatonin and it stimulates them, we have to say, okay, let's go off the melatonin, and you have to treat that patient's gut. You have to, because if you're giving melatonin to candida-ridden patients or a leaky gut, the bacteria in the gut are going to use the melatonin like sugar, and it's going to create side effects that is very stimulating to the patient. So remember, stimulated patient on melatonin means look at the gut, treat the gut, and then 3 months later, after you've made some progress here, put them back on the melatonin and give them a dose higher than what they were previously taking. So another thing is, oh God, I wake up like a zombie. I don't know what, I can't get out of bed. I can't get moving in the morning. Well, melatonin is immediately inactivated by light. So I'm saying, okay, struggle, get to the nearest window and look into the sun, into the early morning sun, and bang, the melatonin production, even though you've taken too much, is immediately taken care of. But waking up with a hangover means that you've taken too much melatonin too quickly and to lower the dosage. This means the liver is not processing that melatonin and there's extra melatonin going around. So lower the dose, have them get up and look at the early morning sunshine, and that usually takes care of the melatonin hangover. Now, nightmares from melatonin. I will say that melatonin increases dream state dreams. Now, if there's some psychological stress that's carried around from childhood, it's going to show up in nightmares. And so what I'm saying to the client is, well, we have to work through this, because the dream state actually is trying to heal those old emotional states. And so I ask them to persist or lower the dose of melatonin so they can work through this dream state, nightmares, and then deal with the possible anxiety and stress. Now, we have some help with the Rubimed remedies, with the different homeopathics that can help with the stress and anxiety, but more lucid dreams are a common side effect of melatonin, because when you're dreaming well, that means you're in REM state. And when you're in REM state, or just after your REM state, is your deepest state of sleep. And if you're not getting into that deep state of sleep, you're probably not going to wake up refreshed. So another common complaint about melatonin is headaches. Too much, too fast. The liver's not breaking it down. Lower the dosage. Now, with our particular melatonin, it has B6 in it, and it's a sublingual tablet. So it will go bypass the liver. It goes right in under the tongue. It's a very nice tasting tablet, and so it dissolves, very quickly within 2 months, 2 minutes. Now, the other thing is taking a dose of melatonin for people that haven't tolerated this. We add L-glycine. Now, L-glycine is an amino acid, and you need 4 to 5 grams. So you can buy this or have the customer buy it in powder. They put it in a warm glass of water before they go to bed. And L-glycine is not a sleep aid, but it does enhance the ability to get to sleep more quickly. So L-glycine lowers the body temperature, and it does this within 15 minutes. So if a person has had, say, a meal, within 2 hours of going to bed, and it's a heavy meal, they may be still digesting the meal. So we encourage people to probably not eat after 5 or 6 o'clock, and if they do eat at that time, then eat a light evening meal so you're not still trying to digest your meal when you're trying to go to sleep. Now, L-glycine will lower body core temperature quickly, which is the preparation for your body going to sleep. And so this is important that your bedroom be cool. Now, if your bedroom temperature is up above 68 degrees, it's too warm. So the person will lie there sweating half the night because their body temperature is trying to go into a relaxed mode and the environment is not allowing it. Or the person has eaten a meal and they're still trying to burn off more energy than they need to in their sleep state. So the other thing in our questionnaire, of course, is do you get any exercise? You know, it's essential that a healthy person gets some kind of exercise. So you can talk to them about you know, if you've got a patient that's basically a couch potato, they have a sedentary lifestyle at work, they never really get out and walk around the block, only walking they do is between the couch and the fridge. Well, changing this person's habits and lifestyle was going to be one of your major challenges, but if they want some sleep, they need to be getting some exercise during the day. So the stress levels, we've gone through basically the 19 questions that are in our handout. So you can go over that with the patient, and or you can give them the questionnaire that comes before the patient talks to you. So how much sleep do we actually need? Now, this is fairly current data from one of the major sleep websites. And so in the last year, they said they have updated. So this is a bit surprising. Newborns, of course, 0 to 3 months, you know, they're sleeping just about 24 hours in some cases. But the surprise situation is teenagers. Teenager between 14 and 17 need 8 to 10 hours. Now, how many teenagers are getting 8 to 10 hours sleep? Probably very few. And what's going to affect this probably is their overuse of electronics, cell phones, computers, video games. So if you're dealing with a teenager sleep problem, and these are very, very common, very common. So you need to look at, you know, what's the electronics, what's their bedroom like. You know, one thing you don't want is somebody drinking a lot of sugary juices. In other words, don't drink a lot of calories before you go to bed, because that's energy that's going to burn up while you're trying to go to sleep. So minimize the sugary drinks, beverages, the alcohol, and if they have to drink something before bed, you know, it should only be water. So now the other surprising is that the adults between 26 and 64 and the adults over 65 still need 7 to 8 hours. So if they're getting 7 hours of good sleep, you know, they're probably fine. But the big signal is, are you waking up refreshed? In other words, do your feet hit the ground running when you wake up in the morning? That's what should happen. And if somebody says, oh, God, I got to drag out of bed in the morning, I need 2 cups of coffee to get going. So there you have a different kind of problem. And they're probably going into sleep debt. Now, if you're not getting these minimum number of hours, as on this chart here, you're going to accumulate sleep debt. And sleep debt is going to, it's like money going in the bank, only it's a negative bank balance. And So if you go for months and months and months, you're going to accumulate more sleep debt, and then you're going to get less efficiency during the next day. And now there is actually a test that you can have the client do to show them that they're a walking zombie sleep debt situation. So the insomniac symptoms are they getting these number of hours to sleep? Now, another common misconception is the brain rests during the sleep. The brain doesn't rest during the sleep. The brain is active, but it shouldn't be on overdrive. So the brain is actually extremely active 6.5 hours a night. So the other hour and a half, the brain should be in total sleep mode, like the television. There's nothing going on there, and that is going to be the factor on whether the client is going to wake up refreshed or not. Are they able to put the brain into a sleep mode that gives it total relaxation? So the adult getting 6 hours of sleep, I used to pride myself because I was working 7/24 and 7 days a week. I'd say, I didn't need more than 6 hours sleep. Wrong. You know, I found that there was a period in the day that my efficiency dropped to almost zero. I could stay awake, but I found that trying to concentrate and where it would catch up on me is when I'd get in my car and I'd have to drive an hour home. And I was finding that I was falling asleep driving home. And I actually had a couple of car accidents. So this started waking me up to like, whoa, you know, am I that exhausted? Yes, I was only getting 6 hours of sleep a night. So these are dangerous situations, but prescription drugs are no solution for this. So this gives us a bit of a summary, but the diagnosing of where the sleep problem comes from in your client is the key to your success. And the sleep aids that we're going to recommend are going to be just a crutch to help them get their lifestyle more regulated so they can get the melatonin in their life that they need. Now, the melatonin is a big subject, and there's common misconceptions about melatonin. And so this falls into the category that I put in as voodoo medical data. So they're saying, you don't need more than 0.5, you don't need more than 3 milligrams, but you'll find that the sleep aid maximum allowed in Canada on the shelf is 10 milligrams. But you'll find that melatonin dosages, you can't hurt a person with melatonin, no matter what level, and there's many studies showing that melatonin dosages at any level do not have negative side effects. As a matter of fact, there's some very positive side effects to taking melatonin. Now, our melatonin starts at 10 milligrams. Now, this seemed maybe excessively high, but the results that I've had with most of my clients is that I start high, it works. If you run into some of these problems that I mentioned, then you have to solve the problems first and then put them on a tapered up dose of melatonin. Now, personally, we can only sell the melatonin in the 10 milligrams, but my pharmacy is a compounding pharmacy, and we make 60 milligrams, we make 120 milligrams, we make 240 milligrams, and we make 400 milligrams. Now, this sounds, they're shocked at this, but I have between 500 and 1,000 clients taking in excess of a half a gram of melatonin a day. Now, they're not taking this as a sleep aid. They started off solving their sleep problems with lower doses of melatonin, and the side effects of taking melatonin are all positive. There is no... Now, there's one thing about taking melatonin with counterindication. You do not give it to pregnant mothers. You do not give it to children or infants or babies. I've had mothers say, oh, I should give my baby some melatonin drops. He's not sleeping. Well, melatonin is one of these hormones, and it is a hormone that regulates your hormone, sexual hormones. So in a developing baby and in a developing child under 12 years old, absolutely no melatonin, because it'll prevent the proper development of puberty. It prevents the proper development of the testicles in the young male. It'll get them to sleep, but it has side effects that are long-term. So these are the main counterindications. No pregnant moms, no babies, and nobody under 12 years old. And if they are a teenager, melatonin will help them. Again, you have to tailor the dose. You have to look at their lifestyle. So these are, when we say side effects of melatonin, the rest of the side effects are all very positive. So with melatonin product that we have here, the short half-life of melatonin is very interesting, because you can take 10 milligrams of melatonin and the body detoxifies and gets it out usually within an hour and a half. So it's a very short-acting product. The body uses it and it breaks it down. The liver breaks it down. Even if you're taking it sublingually, you know, the patient could wake up half an hour or maybe 3 hours later. So what I tell them is to put another tablet beside the bed. Don't turn the light on. If you wake up in the middle of the night, just reach over to the bedside table, pop the other melatonin in your mouth, and go back to sleep. And usually there's no problem about a person dropping right back to sleep within 10 minutes. And the second dose of melatonin will carry them on through the night. In many cases, you'll find that the second stage of sleep, say the first stage of sleep, they woke up too fast because they've had too much of anxiety in the daylight before, in the daytime activities. So their body's just going to a lower level of relaxation. They'll wake up, maybe they have to go to the bathroom. If they have to go to the bathroom, I say don't turn on the lights. Get to know your bedroom and your bathroom so you can fumble to the bathroom in the dark, take your little melatonin pill, and you go back to bed, and generally 20 milligrams will do this. Now, some patients, it takes more. And so I start off with the 10, 20 milligram dosage, but in some cases, if the problem is more severe, I can start off with 20 milligrams and go to 40 milligrams. And if you get a client that you need more than that, you know, I can help you coach the client. I have a lot of experience in using the higher doses of melatonin. And if you use the dose for melatonin correctly, you will get a good night's sleep for that client. So I've had about 5% of my clients, I just can't get them to sleep. And generally it's lifestyle. You know, and I'll tell you a story about one gentleman. He called me and he says, I only get 2 hours, 3 hours sleep a night, and this has been going on for years. So I tried everything possible. I give him huge doses of melatonin. I give him herbs. He says the prescription drugs don't work. And I said, still haven't figured out the problem. So I said, what's your daily schedule? Well, I spend all day, I'm an internet guy. I got an internet website. So I'm spending 9 hours a day on my computer. okay, so that's part of the problem. I said, are you around any electro pollution? He said, no. He says, I'm living out in the middle of the country in Surrey. So I looked onto the web map to look for the cell phone tower locations. And of course, we have this on our handout. So you can look on this map on the web and find out. Now, there's a lot of these cell phone tower locations in the city. And if it happens to be across the street from the apartment block that your patient's on, there's a very good likelihood that that patient is suffering from electro pollution from that cell phone tower. So this particular gentleman, he had a cell phone tower that had 5 different, it was one of the largest ones in the Surrey area. It was transmitting TELUS, Bell, all the other ones, and it was 100 yards from his house. And I said, well, that, and the amount of electro pollution he was using, so he was one of my unsolvable patients. I said, well, you have to protect your health. You have to do something to modify. So you will find some situations, but melatonin in my practice takes care of 95%. If you're doing 95% with your clients, you're going to have people coming back raving about your practice. But the main thing with this is find out why they're not sleeping. And if you're having some real difficulty with the clients, you can, Heather and myself are actually, we can help you coach. Send us an email describing exactly what your situation is, and we're happy to give you a suggestion. So when I started doing some of my melatonin research, and I thought, there's a problem coming down the road that we are all going to have to deal with. Right at the moment, we're probably not having a big problem, but we've got the weed coming in. Canada has endorsed the use of marijuana. So what is going to happen when we get an overusage of marijuana in the public domain? And it's going to happen. Seniors are taking it, young people are taking it. And so what happens when you take marijuana? It's a good sleep aid. So look at this graph here. Marijuana causes a dramatic increase in the melatonin levels. So, it's a good sleep aid, but it's a short-term sleep aid. So the problem with taking marijuana is that if you're taking it during the daytime and it's stimulating your melatonin production in the daytime, that's not desirable. So when you're probably not taking melatonin is when you're sleeping, or you're not taking marijuana, it's when you're sleeping. So what's happening when people take marijuana and melatonin? So you get what we call a higher euphoric state. In other words, they love it. They're crazy. It gives them an absolutely wonderful high. Is it putting them to sleep? No. They're getting so high on the combination of the high melatonin from the weed and the melatonin whatever they're taking, creating this ultra euphoria. So the marijuana situation is something that I'm going to do a lot of studying on. And if we want to have a seminar completely on marijuana in 6 to 9 months when everything gets legal, you're going to be dealing with marijuana problems. So you can also deduce people that want to come off the weed. For some reason or another, they've been on the weed for many, many, many years, and so they say, how do I get off this? I can't get off of it. I can't go to sleep. Melatonin is the answer for these people. Okay. So start them on the melatonin, weed them off the weed, and they'll start sleeping better. So I haven't done a lot of research on this, but by the time we get ready to do our next seminar on marijuana, this is going to be a problem that is not going to go away. It's going to get bigger, and you're going to find more and more use of this drug in the public sector, and you're going to have to deal with overuse of this problem. So we've kind of talked around all the details of marijuana, and I'd like to throw this open to a questionnaire. So we're good to go. If you have any detailed questions, I'll turn this over to Heather.
Perfect. Thank you, Harlan. So if you have some questions, I invite you to type them into the Q&A section or into the chat room. And then what I'm going to do is Harlan will be able to go through the questions one by one and be able to answer them for you. So while we've had the presentation, there has been some questions that have come through. So the first question is from Karen. I've heard that taking melatonin supplements might diminish a person's ability to produce their own melatonin. So Harlan, can you comment on that, please?
Well, there is some discussion around this, but my own personal belief is that most people are so melatonin deficient because of the overuse of the light in their basically daytime diet and the overuse of the electronics. There's nothing wrong with taking exogenous melatonin. And as a person, you see, the pineal gland is, with larger doses of melatonin, and we didn't get into this, has the ability to be calcified. And the production of melatonin with the calcified pineal, now it gets calcified by fluoride water. This is particularly bad. If you have a client and their water's been fluoridated, you can bet that their pineal gland is probably underactive. And so calcium and phosphorus also help calcify the pineal gland. So I've never been really concerned about the person's ability to produce their own melatonin. My own theory is that if you give them enough melatonin, they're getting sleep, the body is going to start to readjust to this. Now nobody can say there's a feedback mechanism like there is with testosterone. You give testosterone to a male and his testes shrink. This is not the case with the melatonin and the pineal gland. That there is not a lot of real research that say that this inactivates the pineal gland, and quite honestly, I don't think it does, because you can take huge amounts of melatonin, you can take it indefinitely, there's no side effects. And so there's one thing that I'd like to, I just found on a website that I'm going to read out to you about the benefits of melatonin, but I hope that answers your question.
Yep, thank you, that's great. Okay, next question. Andrea is curious to know if CBD oil or CBD products have a similar effect of raising the melatonin levels.
Okay, the CBD oil, I wish I could answer that specifically, but from what I gather from my basic reading, it's the THC segment of the the marijuana that's causing the increase in melatonin production. But that's a very specific question. I wish I could answer that specifically. Why don't I take your email? I'll do a little homework and I'll get it back to you on email, because I really don't know, and I don't know if there's enough research to find out whether it's the CBD or the THC in marijuana. Good question. Thank you.
Okay. And then the next question we have here is, so from Karen again, I've heard this advice before about absolutely no light at night, but primitive humans had no choice but to sleep by the moonlight. What can you comment on that?
Good question. From personal experience, around full moon, and I used to work in the general hospital, moonlight causes people to literally howl at the moon. So if you're howling at the moon, you're not sleeping. So the moonlight is very stimulating, usually 2 nights before full moon and 2 nights afterwards. And the night of the full moon, for me, there's 4 nights a month that I can be in a black bedroom and I still don't sleep. So the moonlight is not only the light energy, but there's other energy that's bouncing off that's unseen. So the primitive humans, they slept on the ground, or they slept in caves, and they had a closer relationship with the resonance of nature than we have in the city. So I am sure that they were getting their sleep, but to sleep in the open moonlight, yes, they were probably, nobody has any studies done whether these people had enough sleep or not. They didn't live in many cases till over 40 or 30 years, so that might tell us something about that.
Okay. So the next question from Bridget, how do you manage problematic EMFs?
Okay, so depending on what the EMF is from, now you can buy shielding, okay, and in some cases, if you find out that a person is EMF sensitive, the big problem we've got these days is smart meters. This is a huge problem, and 95% of the houses have smart meters, and you can find that people's sleep problems, if the smart meters are behind the bedroom, and in many cases they're problems. So you can go on the web, and there's a number of websites that will help shielding. Now, even if you have to create a canopy over the bed, you can buy it's almost like a silver curtain. It's very, very thin, and it shields you from all types of EMF, whether it's web, Wi-Fi, or whether it's from a cell phone tower. The thing is to be shielded from the EMFs during your sleep period. And there are solutions for that. But the main thing is to get electronics out of your bedroom and turn your Wi-Fi off in your home at night.
And that silver net is called a Faraday cage, so you can actually go online and order them. Okay, next question. What does lux stand for?
Okay, lux is the potency of the light. Now, there's frequency of the light, which is the Kelvin, which tells you whether it's artificial light or daylight. But the lux is the brightness. Now, the lux is recommended for sort of daily function is somewhere between 250 and 380, and you'll probably find you can take a light meter, a photo light meter, and you can probably measure the lux. So is the light really bright? So at night and in your bathroom, the lux should be below 180. In other words, dim light. And so this is just a term for the brightness of the light. And your computer, you can get apps on your computer. My computer at 10 o'clock at night, it switches from blue light to orange light. And then it doesn't turn back onto the blue light until 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, next question. What do you recommend when a male patient wakes at 3 a.m. nightly in heavy sweating on the head only?
Wow, okay, that's very specific. First thing I would look at is what's his diet like? I would say, is he consuming any alcohol? Look very closely on alcohol consumption. I would need to have a little bit more information about the patient specifically, and if you want to send that to me, I could give you a little more intelligent answer. I need a little bit more data to give you a specific answer. It's a specific question. and I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. So Ron, email it in to us. I'll send my email when I send my follow-up email tomorrow morning. You can respond back, and then I'll make sure that Harlan's able to look at it, and we'll get an answer to you. Okay, we've got some more questions here. So Janet asks, other than assistance with sleep, what are the other benefits with melatonin?
Okay, this is a great question. I'm glad you asked this. I'm saying, okay, so I'm going to read you from a website that did some studies. And so smoking marijuana is accompanied by a dramatic increase in melatonin production that may explain some of the drug's positive effects. The article from the Journal of American Medical Association reported that the weed, the hallucinogenic, is used to counteract the toxicity of chemotherapy, treat migraines, treat intraocular pressure, minimize pain, treat menstrual cramps, and modern wasting with AIDS patients and cancer patients, and it's anti-aging. So it says melatonin has also been shown to ameliorate each of those conditions. So melatonin, when you're not taking it for sleep, at higher dosages, enhances your brain to use higher mental functions than you ordinarily, and I can talk for this on an hour. I'm happy to give you information on it, but they're treating cancer with melatonin, absolutely. The doses of melatonin with cancer patients is 50 milligrams and above. It can go as high as a gram. In many cases, they don't go that high, but the cancer patients benefit tremendously. It's anti-aging. It's anti-allergy. It helps the immune system. You know, there's so many benefits to melatonin that even if you're not taking it for sleeping, I would say, you know, give it to them. Because if you can assure that they're getting a good night's sleep, the extra melatonin is going to have nothing but a positive effect on them.
Janet, I have a really good resource that I can send you with very good references on all the well-researched benefits of melatonin. So what I will do is I will include that in the follow-up email that I'm going to send, and you can see all the different categories where melatonin can be beneficial with patients. I did see a question pop up. So, Harlan, do you know what the anti-allergy dosage would be for melatonin?
Oh, well, I would start at 20 milligrams to 100 milligrams a day. It's going to build your immune system, but it's not going to do it with 3 milligrams or 5 milligrams. I can tell you for sure. So you're going to have to go into the higher dosages.
Okay, next question. Is there any way to test the level of melatonin deficiency?
Well, melatonin deficiency is kind of something that I picked up. I don't think out in there in clinical science and research that they're using the term a lot. This is kind of my own personal definition. If a person is exposed to all this EMF, they're exposed to all this light, and they're not sleeping, I'd say that is, you don't need to do blood work on melatonin. Nobody knows, because melatonin doesn't stay in the blood long enough to be tested. That's my own. If melatonin is the hormone, it's going to go into the tissues right away, and its half-life is so short that you can do blood tests on melatonin, and you can do urine tests, which gives you the conjugates of melatonin. But personally, I don't think that tells you anything. You can look clinically at the patient to tell whether they're melatonin deficient. If they're not sleeping, if their circadian rhythm is crazy, you could pretty well assume that there's a problem with melatonin.
And the other thing to remember as well is that, and Harlan has mentioned this, that the pineal gland calcifies over time, especially with exposure to fluoride. And so if one of the main areas of melatonin production is being reduced, And also the gut also produces melatonin, so if there's a lot of gut issues or inflammation, then you may, from those clinical symptoms, also be looking to surmise that there could also be melatonin deficiency plus the inability to sleep at night. So there are some, different sideways ways to look at it as well. Okay, here we go. We've got still lots of questions, so let's keep going on. Good question, Judy. Will we get the PowerPoint slides? Yes. Always, I'm going to send the slides out with a follow-up email tomorrow morning, and then also we always record our webinars, and so this webinar, once it's been edited and cleaned up, then we will be posting that. And I'll send out, myself or Keith will send out an email just to mention when it's available to listen to again. So here we go. So we've got some more questions here. So recommendations for older adults who wake frequently because they need to urinate, aside from taking more melatonin each time they go back to bed.
Okay, great question, because that is exactly my problem. I like to drink tea. I drink tea in the late evenings. It doesn't prevent me from going to sleep, but it definitely makes me get up after 2 or 3 hours and want to pee. So I keep my bedroom dark. I put this little pill beside the bathroom sink. I don't turn on the light, and in some cases I will take 3 of those pills in the night. And wham, I go back, and it's like, well, the melatonin dosages that I'm taking, my wife's taking, and many people taking is extremely large, above a half a gram. And so melatonin for me is very short acting. But going to the bathroom, well, you got to go, you got to go. So you got to get up in the middle of the night, but the idea is don't turn on the light. Take your little sublingual tablet. Now, if somebody really has to sleep and they want to sleep longer and they're waking up too many times, maybe they're waking up 10 times a night after 3 hours, so we have a couple of or more supplements that will help with that. And do you have that on the slide, Heather?
Yeah.
So the Avena sativa is a combination remedy, and it has valerian in it. Now, valerian is a herb that has actually quite a long period of activity. It works for 6 to 8 hours. In some cases, too much valerian, people can't wake up from the hangovers. But we've got a small amount of valerian, so for the patient that really wants to stay down during a long period of time, you could take the melatonin B6 plus the herbal Avena sativa, which is a combination herbal product. I can't tell you exactly all what it is, but Heather can say. Now, this is a short-term acting, long-term activity for giving a full 7-hour night's sleep.
Okay, so we've got a couple more questions here, and we've got time for these few more questions. So for menopausal women, what do you recommend beyond melatonin with hot flashes?
Great question. Thank you. I've forgotten to mention this. There's one thing. Menopausal and postmenopausal women are a big problem. If their hormones aren't balanced, you are probably not going to get into sleep no matter what. So bioidentical hormones, in my particular family situation, we kind of have twins. My wife didn't sleep more than 3 hours a night for 20 years, and by the time she wasn't having her periods anymore, she was crazy. And so until we got our hormones balanced and large doses of melatonin, she never slept. Right now, she takes almost a gram of melatonin, her hormones are balanced, and she's a person again. So you do need to deal with the hormones with menopausal and postmenopausal women, and you need to deal with it certainly with the bioidentical hormones. This may take a year, but if the hormones are not balanced, it's going to affect the sleep. And melatonin is is a little useful. Let's put it this way. But it's not the solution. You've got to fix the hormones.
The one thing that we do have that's very helpful in the Nestman line is female tonic. It works to help balance out hormones in general, especially in the more estrogen-dominant pictures. And so for women in menopause with hot flashes, female tonic is an excellent formula, and it pairs really well with liver detox, so A. hepatica, or Cardis, the gallbladder detox, and to help process the excess estrogen in the body. So the combination of female tonic with A. hepatica or female tonic with Cardis often can be very helpful for women with hot flashes, in addition to melatonin. So melatonin in children under 12, what is the issue with under 12?
Okay, so melatonin with children under 12, they're still, their body's trying to get their hormones organized. You know, in some cases, the young girls, they're having periods at 7 or 8 years old, but until they're stabilized, and they're 12 or 13, those hormones are not stabilized. And the same way with the young male. Under 12 years old, he's not fully hormonally developed, and giving melatonin to these people is counterproductive. Okay? It's going to delay that normal production of hormones that is regulated by the pineal gland, and it's regulated through the natural melatonin production. So it's very individual. I'm just saying don't give it under 12. There's a lot of information showing that it actually prevents that normalization of hormones.
Okay, so it looks like that was it. We got through all the questions. I'll have to tell you, that was an awesome Q&A session. We had 19 questions. Not that I necessarily count through our past webinars, but this is definitely one of the ones where we've had so many. So thank you for all your great questions. I did see one more quick thing come through, so we'll do this one last question. And so amber light is okay, amber glass is okay. What about, is amber light okay as amber glasses, or do all wavelengths, red, yellow, green, affect the pineal?
The main thing that's affecting the pineal is blue light. So you can get blue blocker glasses, and if you're using computers a lot, you can wear blue blocker glasses. You can order them on the web, but it's mainly blue light. And so the other lights, the yellow, red, greens, are not a problem.
Excellent. Well, I thank all of your questions, and thanks. We've had a nice little rush of beautiful thank you notes coming through, so glad they were able to join us tonight. I'm so thrilled that Harlan was able to spend an hour with us and talk about all of his experience and sleep expertise, and also to give more information about melatonin and trying to break some of those misconceptions and myths about it. So with that said, thank you everyone for joining us tonight on the Clinical Pearls with a Visionary Pharmacist on sleep. And again, thank you, Harlan, very much for sharing all your wisdom and expertise on sleep and melatonin.
It's a pleasure, Heather.
Okay, with that said, thank you so much, everyone, and have a really wonderful rest of your evening. Take care.